The following content is provided under a Creative Commons license. Your support will help MIT OpenCourseware continue to offer high-quality educational resources for free. To make a donation or view additional materials from hundreds of MIT courses, visit MIT OpenCourseware at ocw.mit.edu.
Okay, it's 1:06. We're going to start presentations at 1:10. So Ghost Maze, just get started. You don't have to come down here yet, but just make sure you're ready. So just a brief going over what we're doing today. Presentations. I hear a lot of really good energy in the room, so I hope to hear that when you come down and tell us about your games and all the foibles, all the things that went wrong, all the things that went right. Hopefully this is a really good prep for you for our next assignment, which is going to be much, much longer. So after we get through with presentations, we'll take a brief break, and then we're going to just jump right into Project 4. I'll introduce Project 4 again, going through all the boring slides with all the deadlines and stuff. If you want to follow, when I get to that, if you want to follow along on Stellar, I just updated the Project 4 assignment today to make sure that the deadlines were correct. And we'll double check that again as well. Unfortunately, Pablo, who came to us in the beginning of the semester, is not here with us in person, but he will be here with us on Skype. He's in Geneva right now, but he'll be talking to us about what they're looking for Project 4. In particular, we're going to be introduced to 6 different game topics, game design topics, and you're going to choose one of them. We're not necessarily making your choice today. We're going to do brainstorming today. We're going to have people form up into brainstorming groups around these topics to talk about them, and then you will have over the weekend to talk about it on the mailing list, to read some of the resources and some of the materials we posted to Stellar to see which topic you're most interested in. And we're going to start the day off Monday with forming teams. So we got a bit longer time to form teams, a bit longer time to really think about the topic and to think about what the project's going to be. Again, you're going to have more time to actually do concepting on this project. It's an 8-week project, 9 weeks if you count spring break, and which you shouldn't. We designed it as an 8-week project. What's that? Not spring break. I said no. Yeah, no, not yeah. Don't work on spring break. Like you were going to. Any quick questions before we start? We got 2 minutes left. Any quick questions you might have had about Project 3, about turn-ins? I said don't work during spring break. We designed this as an 8-week project. For Project 4 is an 8-week project. We designed it so that you are not working on the project over spring break. What's that? Oh, you could give me some details about what I'm screwing up over here. So do we have a fall break? Do we not, don't we have a week-long break? Thanksgiving break? Yeah, Thanksgiving break. It's 70 degrees outside. I'm in a different place right now. All right, so Ghost Maze, come on down and make sure your projector, if you're going to use a projector at all, works. And what's up? I still didn't understand. No, just like before, it's just you only need as many people as you need to present to come down.
So if you don't remember, our game was Ghost Maze, and we'll run you through a quick refresher of what the game actually was first, so you remember what it is.
So here we have our character in a maze. You've just woken up and you're in a dark maze. All you have is your lantern. And so your objective is to explore the maze, avoid ghosts, and drop beacons to help you explore the maze, and then find a key, which will then unlock an exit for you to get out of the maze. And so there are different effects that happen during the game, such as your sanity starts decreasing as the game goes on, and then randomly, as your sanity starts getting lower and lower, your movement will get impaired randomly, and the light will turn red, as you can see in this picture right here. And then another interaction that we had was when you get close enough to a ghost, your sanity starts decreasing faster. So the light turns blue to let you know that you're too close to a ghost and you need to get away from that ghost.
Yeah, so a few things that went right was that it was hard to balance everyone's schedules, but everyone was pretty flexible in terms of what features they were working on, so people would adapt to the features that needed to be done at that time. So flexibility was, I think, something that went more or less well in terms of working on what needed to be worked on. Second thing that went right was user experience. So we spent a lot of time focusing on user experience and playing with the camera, playing with shadows, playing with the player movement. We spent a lot of time like putting in graphics and audio so that it seemed a little more realistic to really put you in the context that you were in a dark maze and lost. A few things that went wrong is we started out using Flixel, but it took us a few days and we still couldn't get up a dev environment running, so we decided to switch over to Unity. That was like a pretty wise choice, but we made it pretty late. We found that collaborative coding on Unity was really hard. Certain changes like to the main scene they wouldn't merge well. And so also, when we were working on different branches and then tried to merge back into master, it seemed like people's changes were lost or overwritten. So we found that Unity wasn't great in terms of like having a big team project where a lot of people are coding at once. And sometimes we just reapply changes onto the master branch. Something else is like we all had really busy schedules. People were out of town, in town, like could only work on the project at certain points. So I think something that helped with that was at the beginning we did a pretty good job of delegating tasks to people who could work on the project earlier. But then later on it was pretty like haphazard in terms of who was available at one time. So maybe reevaluating priorities as the project went on would have been, I think, really helpful.
So lessons learned. We spent a lot of time working on our user experience. Because we had a 3D perspective game, there was a lot of thought that went into how the light was hitting the player, how to get the shadows to cast properly, how the player knows that the player is in a maze, and being able to move around and understand how your sanity is decreasing. We spent a lot of time testing that. Working early and quickly. This was partly hindered because we lost like at least 4 days of work because we were trying to get Flixel set up and then it just didn't work and we had to switch to Unity, so basically starting over from scratch. Working early and quickly is super important because we ended up having to drop quite a few features because we didn't get enough done on time. And we also learned that working in 3D is very, very hard. We were originally going to do a 2D game and then thought, oh, how hard would it be to, we have a 2D game, but let's just give it a 3D perspective. That was not a good idea. Doing the textures took a long time. It ended up looking really, really nice, as you can see in the pictures, but the time investment was a huge time investment that we could have used to put in some more complex mechanics into our game. And future improvements. Team communication and availability is a huge one. As Rachel said, we had a task assigned at the beginning, but then due to people's schedules, we didn't really take that into account when we made the initial task list. So people ended up having to pick up other people's tasks, and it became very hard to figure out who was working on what. And scheduling meetings was near impossible. Getting familiar with the game engine. Using Unity at first was very hard because we weren't sure how the scenes work, and eventually we figured out that if we make most of the stuff dynamically generated, then we can just worry about the code and not have to worry about all the user interface stuff that Unity does. And that would have made our game develop a lot quicker. And setting deadlines was very important. We had a lot of tasks laid out, but we didn't set strict deadlines for when we wanted each task to be assigned, or when we wanted each task to be finished, and that would have helped push along our game and get some of the more mechanics that we wanted in.
Yeah, I think like something we a little bit overlooked is like when we were gonna plan on doing our testing sessions, because like we should have set the internal deadlines to match the testing sessions so that we get as much feedback as possible. But like that said, we still like got something out of the testing sessions, so it was good. I think that's all we have.
That's it.
So I don't know if you guys have questions.
All right, thank you.
I'm from Team Hardcore Dragon, and as a refresher, I mean, our game is about being a hardcore dragon, so to us that meant raising villages, being chased down by knights, and accumulating a hoard of gold that you have to protect from looters. And we all were like pretty excited about this idea, and that was probably like the best thing about the project as a whole, is it was a fun idea. And like even when we like got bogged down with work from other classes, or like something, the merge didn't go through correctly, or there was a bug and we couldn't understand why it was happening, it was like still like really fun to be like, okay, I really need this, like to make this dragon like, you know, set this village on fire, and I want to do this because that's awesome. And another thing that worked is that we use Getter, which integrates with GitHub to, whenever something is pushed, It'll show up onto the right and you can link to it, and add everybody who's on your project is on the Gitter chat. So it was easy to keep track of who was working at what time and who was online at that time and who you could ask for help to let you debug whatever was going wrong. Another thing that helped was Trello is actually a really good tool. Last project I personally used just Google Docs, but Trello is much easier to like look at something, drag it, oh, I'm doing this right now, adding yourself to things and like breaking it down to simpler tasks. It's all very easy on Trello. It's very like, I mean, it's built for this. So it made long-term goal planning a lot easier. And you could see at this moment who was supposed to be doing what. Unfortunately, the idea was also like a downside to the project because it was like hardcore dragging it. I want to do so many things with this idea. I want to, like when I blow fire on this thing, I want it to like turn into a crumbled building and become a pile of flames, and it'll be awesome. And like that's not necessarily at the top of the feature list, obviously, because we have other mechanics that are more important than that. But we kept coming up with these like little additions that would make the game a lot more like cool or awesome, but or hard to prioritize and just way too much to stack on top of the game. So that was a downside. And it was just hard to control our, it was hard to scope the game down to the 5-minute game we needed to create for the project. Gitter was good with the repo, and if everybody was on and everybody used it all the time, it would be ideal. But since a lot of us are on the go and like working on other things and like in classes while people are working, using something else might have been better, like GChat or Facebook, like something you access from a smartphone or something, and more instantaneous. I mean, we would just get like, if you weren't on Gitter at the time, it would send you a notification being like, you missed these messages, which is almost as like delayed message as email. So like it was kind of pointless, other than the fact that it was integrated with GitHub and you could see who was online at the same time as you. Another thing that didn't work is that meetings are really, really hard to coordinate with like 7 people. And what ended up happening was that we would all be like, okay, so half of us are free this day, and like 6 of us are free this other time. Let's meet then. And then we wouldn't decide a specific time within the time we were free to meet. And then by the time we noticed this, it would be like that day, and it was just hard to coordinate everything after it got to that point. So for the future, I believe we have to have a fully dedicated Scrum Master, and I really mean fully dedicated, not Scrum Master aka programmer on the side, or Scrum Master also gets music done and playtests, does playtesting, everybody playtests, but like fully dedicated Scrum Master to make sure that everybody's on task, that the meetings will get scheduled, and that the tasks are prioritized. And if something falls through, they're the person to talk to. They're the person who's gonna like make you stop freaking out that this task took like 3 times as long as you estimated it for. We didn't have this one person dedicated to that. Everybody was like a jack of all trades in our group. So not having that one person to talk to, go to, made task prioritization really fuzzy and made everything kind of come together really late, and it was hard to hold people accountable because there wasn't that one person who was on top of everybody. Another thing we had to do earlier would be feature cutting, because if you don't cut features definitively earlier, you'll still have it lingering on some people's minds, like, oh, I have to do this so that in the future, we're gonna maybe use this feature. But if you cut these features early, then you like limit the propensity to have bugs or stuff like that. And like, while it's unfortunate that you have to cut features, it's necessary. So doing it earlier is the best time to do it. Another thing is, like I said before, our native messaging system, Gitter was cute, but it didn't like actually work in the way that we wanted it to work. It wasn't instantaneous between all members. I mean, it's hard to find a messaging system that everybody likes, but I think something like GChat or Facebook messaging, something instantaneous like that most people use already, should be used as a group. so that everybody can be on the same page and like have access to the instant messaging. And yeah, so that's, our game is there if you want to play it. Anybody questions?
So if you were to do feature cutting early, did you feel like you had the information in order to do that?
So there was some stuff that like after even the halfway point that we could have cut features, but instead of the halfway point, we did like 2 days ago, which is too late already. So like even earlier than that, it doesn't have to be like day 1 feature cutting. Just at some like maybe like points throughout and be like what features. Now that I'm here, what features look like they're not going to get through. And with this dedicated Scrum Master who's like looking at people and how they're struggling with certain tasks. Maybe people don't know like exactly what their pace is internally, but from an outside perspective, Scrum Master might be able to more accurately help with estimates and stuff like that. So dedicated Scrum Master would help with early feature cutting as well, probably.
This is a Unity project, right?
Yeah, a Unity project, yeah, sorry. We actually didn't have that many problems with merging because we had, I think, at least one of us was really experienced with Unity, so that was lucky, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, so our team is MIT Simulator 2014. So our basic concept was you play as a certain dean of MIT, you may all know, and you're making decisions that trade off between the endowment, wealthy donors, and student approval. And the basic goal of the game is to try and survive as long as possible while shitty things happen to the institute. So what went right in our project? I think what went right in our project is we connected with our audience. So a lot of MIT students know what it's like to be at MIT, and they know like the setting, they know the administrator that we're not really pointing at, but we kind of are. And so a lot of people connected very well with our game, and so they enjoyed it, and were able to understand it easily in their own terms. So second thing that went well is that humor works. A lot of our things in our game were like kind of unpolished and kind of like slapped together, but because we had like taken the time to make them funny and make them entertaining, people were okay with like losing all their money in one turn accidentally because, hey, the description of it was funny. And so the third thing that went well is that simple is okay. We ended up having like very few core mechanics. But then because of the setting that we had and because people connected well with our game, I think people were still able to get, we think people were still able to get enjoyment out of the game because of those. So now, what went wrong? So first, Hexflixel, aka, what do you mean it's not on Stack Overflow? So Hexflixel, while it did play well with version control, and I heard some horror stories about Unity version control, Hexflixel played pretty well with version control, but if you ever had an issue, you were pretty much out of luck. You could search on Google and you get like 0 results. Sometimes the official documentation wouldn't even turn up on a Google search result. So yeah, the documentation was a little bit lacking. I think the second thing that we could have improved on is that paperwork is not management. And I think like in the class in particular, this isn't emphasized enough, is that you can do all these agile development methods, like you can have a sprint task list and everything, but unless if you actually have people who are actively taking charge and managing the project, I think like stuff still won't get done. And I think that's something that could be improved in the future in this class is like spend less time worrying about paperwork, spend more time actually like, teaching about how to handle personal situations. Like what happens if someone doesn't have time, or what happens if somebody, like does this. And so teaching those, like learning those managerial skills isn't a trivial task. And I think like in the beginning, we like underestimated how much those issues would be a roadblock to progress. And then third thing that went wrong, I guess, is that responsibility is shared. So even if somebody has a role assigned to them, we should all still like take the time to make sure that like everybody is completing their role. So just making sure that like people are checking other people, make sure tasks don't like fall between the cracks and stuff. And so yeah, overall people do like the idea of playing as a certain dean of MIT, and I'm gonna do it around. Okay. Any questions?
So what would you do different? Not necessarily things about the hacks whistle, because that's basically
Yeah.
hacks whistle, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to your management, the management stuff you're talking about, what would you want to do differently, or like what particular would you want? What particular problems did you have that you know you're going to have in the future that you need to have strategies for?
Yeah. I think one thing that we would do differently is like take project management like more as like a people problem than like a paperwork problem, because I think like we kind of just assumed that by filling in the sprint task list and like by like writing git commit logs, we'd magically work together as a team. But I think like I think in the future, just like taking a more active role in ensuring that like people are interacting with each other and like communicating.
How about the final point about the responsibility shared thing? Like, how do you address that going in this project?
I think for the responsibility being shared thing, I guess this was just in reference to like a few particular instances where like we had someone who would like claim that they would do something, and then because we like assumed, oh, you know, this because they claimed that they would do it, that it would get done. But I think like sometimes we let that, you know, we like got too complacent and then thought that it would actually that would actually get done anyways. But I feel like in the future, maybe just like sending out a couple more emails, just like having people confirm that they finished things, like require that people send out emails confirming when they finish things, so we know that like, oh, this thing didn't get submitted yet. Oh shoot, class is in an hour or something like that. So just like encouraging people to either like poke each other more, and also to be more responsible about like when you submit something or when you do something important, you like email out to everyone, and just to like show that you've done the work.
Was email the primary means of communicating between the team, or was there like face-to-face meetings outside of class, or something like that?
So email was our primary means of communicating. I think, yeah, we had one face-to-face meeting outside of class, and then there was another one that was supposed to be scheduled over the long weekend, but like our things happened. People were gone, like 1 or 2 people were gone for the weekend, and then things fell apart. So.
This is our game, Build a Spaceship. It looks like this. You have your ship with a set of component slots and a bunch of components that you can add to the ship. You click and drag them onto the ship, and then you send it out on a mission. After you go out on that mission, you'll get a log that looks like this. All this text is really small, so you can't see it, but it says things like, you met some bandits, you had a battle, you won and earned this much money, or you got hit by asteroids and lost this much health. And the point is that after you design your spaceship and sent it out on this mission, you'll get all this feedback telling you how your ship did, so that you can then update your ship and send it out again and hopefully make even more money. The goal of the game is to complete the series of missions that we have in the game currently and make as much money as you can while doing it. Of course, given more time, we would do things like add more components, upgrading your ship, and sort of other tweaks like that. But this is the core of the game right here. So what went right on our game? We made a prototype really early, which was great. that helped us all get on the same page and understand what we were talking about when we were talking about the game. There was a point before that where we had all these cool ideas from brainstorming and a vague idea, a personal idea really, of what the game would be, and that made it really difficult to communicate. So once we had that down, everything just became way easier. We did a lot of UI testing. Even before we were sure of what the game would specifically be, we knew that it was going to involve adding components to a ship. And so we knew we could UI test that and see how people managed with different ways of adding those kind of components or customizing their ship. Hax Flixel, we found it really simple to work with, actually, and whenever we needed to add more screens or make changes to the game, we all had a pretty intuitive understanding of how that would go. That might also be an artifact of coming over from Phaser, which is very similarly structured. And on our team, we kind of got lucky because everybody had coding experience, and it made it a lot easier because we were all speaking the same language. And so on a time-constrained project like this, it meant that when we talked, we were more efficient about it. That's not to say that there isn't a place for people who don't have coding experience on these teams. It's just that when we only have 2 weeks to get things done, the speed was a huge help. What went wrong was communicating our progress on the game. We had a lot of problems where we wouldn't talk about what was getting done. We didn't know what was even in the game because some things weren't clear yet. Like there was one part where we didn't know that we could actually add components to the ship because somebody had added that in but not actually told us, and the UI wasn't there yet to actually make it clear. We also ran into problems with heroic efforts where the night before something was due, somebody would come in and put in all this effort, and we didn't know what they were doing, and we didn't know what was getting done because we just weren't communicating about that. A problem that's related to this is that we didn't assign tasks well or take ownership of what we were doing or assign responsibility between people, and so we ran into problems where things just wouldn't happen for long spurts of time, and then we'd run into the heroic effort problem at the end where we're all jumping in to make things happen. We also ran into problems where sometimes people didn't push commits for an entire day, and we had no idea what the state of the game actually was. So what we learned from this and what we would do differently next time is first we'd keep track of our progress and make sure that it's continuous. Whether it's using Trello or emails or any other sort of solution for it, it would be really important to make sure we all know what the state of the game is and what's being worked on. We should come up with standards for how we're going to email and meet. We talked about this and said it would be a good idea, but then we didn't actually do it. So it would be good to have a schedule of when your team is going to meet, how they're going to email and why you're going to email, if it's a daily update of what you're doing or if it's every time you push a commit. And also coming up with standards for how you're going to use Git. Are you going to use feature branches and all these kind of things, or are you going to do it all on master? And are you going to push every time you make a new commit, or are we going to push at a set time every day so that we can track it all at once? It'd be good to know who's doing what. That comes in with the idea of communication and tracking progress. What we did at first was we had specific domains that people were working on. Jeremy was working on the UI, Rodrigo was working on the ship model, and this made it really easy to assign tasks and to make sure that things were getting done in the beginning. But then in the end, when we had some tasks that were kind of in the middle and we didn't specifically say what was going to happen, we ended up with this last-minute scramble of, okay, I'll take this thing, actually I'll take this thing, somebody else coming in. And it made it a lot more difficult to track what was actually getting done. You can also give tasks to people. We were kind of reluctant to do that at first, but we got better at it, and it was actually super helpful to just be like, hey, you take this, and then it's completely clear what's happening. And the very last thing to do with this is to just ask what's happening. It's good to get some reassurance that something actually is happening if you're not hearing anything about it. So you can just ask someone like, hey, what are you working on? Or, hey, is anybody working on making this component appear? Then you just get an answer and you get a lot of peace of mind from that. It's good to set up specific times to work together. We didn't do this enough, but it would have been great if we had. And like I said, we made a prototype pretty early on, but I think we could have made one even earlier. We found that it didn't limit our creativity or our ability to talk about the game. Instead, it just gave us a platform to work off of. So we could sort of build a basic prototype with some idea of the core mechanic, and then continue to brainstorm and expand from there. And yeah, that's basically what we learned from this game, and moving forward, we're looking forward to implementing this on Project 4. Any questions?
Besides solving problems with Hackspace on your own, did you find any online resources that turned out to be helpful, or did you just read everything on your own?
The main problem that we ran into with HacksFlixel was we were trying to build an HTML5 and the text just wasn't working, and we found nothing about it. We found one page by HacksFlixel that said, sometimes you have problems with text, try doing this. That didn't work, and nobody else had an answer for it. I don't know if anybody else did.
Basically, you have to read the Flixel documentation and ignore the HacksFlixel documentation. The APIs are identical, and the static typing does like save you a little bit. And you have to jump into the source occasionally. Nothing around that.
Anything else?
Thanks.
So we did looking for Dina. We have some screenshots of the game in case any of you didn't get to play it or see it. So it's just the start screen. We have the first thing. So the game's kind of in two you have to do two different things. The first thing you do is you choose which planet you're going to go to, and you can't really read it, but they all have different distance stats as well as stat gains that each planet will give you. Then you have to navigate through an asteroid field, which, depending on how far along you are in the game, makes it harder as you go along. But hopefully you have those stat gains that should make it easier to actually go through it. You're looking for Dina, and you can lose and win. So what happened, what was right and what was wrong, is we did communicate a lot. And by a lot, I mean like from midnight to like this class, there was 108 emails. And that was just today. So we communicated a lot, but we didn't communicate really effectively. There were a lot of people saying like, yeah, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, this is done, like I submitted this. But then going through those hundreds of emails, trying to figure out, oh wait, who said they were doing this? Who said like this was submitted? Was really hard. And so we didn't have those like daily Scrum meetings that we talked about, and I'm realizing like those would be really useful to have somebody say like, okay, this is what everybody's done, this is what everybody's going to do, this is what we've submitted. Having that like one thing somewhere where everyone can view it easily would make it a lot easier than trying to go through emails and figuring out who did what and like what went wrong. We also, one other thing we did right is we met in smaller groups. So people who were like working on the design met, and just those people met. And then people working on the code met, just those people met, which was really useful for trying to meet. Instead of like having 7 people meet, you only had like 3 or 4. And so it was much easier to arrange those meetings. We really divided the tasks effectively. Everybody was doing something. And like that's kind of what the last point. Everybody tried to make sure they were always doing something and contributing to the project. No one was just sitting there wondering like, what do I do? Everyone tried to constantly be doing something. Another thing that went wrong is that we worked in bursts. So there was just, people were really busy, and then like the night before we assigned an internal deadline, everyone was like, oh, okay, let's work on this right now. And so then it was just people staying up all night to try to finish something, which things got done, but like, you know, sometimes it's like, did we do this the best way we could? Was everything optimized? And we weren't really sure, because everything was done in these short bursts instead of like all, like a little bit every day. And if you guys want to talk about Unity.
Yeah, as people have said, Unity is annoying because it has all these binary files that you cannot merge. So like we have to basically always keep track of, I am working on this scene, no one else touch it. Because if 2 people work on it, someone's going to lose everything they do, which is really annoying. But yeah, emails worked for that, in the sense that way we can say, I finished working with this scene, someone else can touch it now. So that was sort of helpful. Yeah.
That file was terrifying. because you don't know what they do, and maybe just spits out like 5 of them, and you're like, I think it's fine, but sometimes a conflict happens, and you're like, I don't know what to do with this, I think I can check all of them, but then things break and you're sad, and like, I feel like that's even scarier than the scene, because at least you tell each other, stop touching the thing or touching the thing, but sometimes you touch the thing, and then something else happens entirely, and you're like, okay.
I also want to point out like how impossible it is to schedule anything for 7 people. Like we wanted to meet on the weekend, and there was literally not a single period of time, not 1 hour that wasn't like at 3 or 4 in the morning, where everyone was available. It was impossible. It was insane.
So yeah, schedules are hard. So yeah, any questions?
You had 2 points about deadlines up there, and I'm wondering if you...
No, so we did kind of keep to deadlines. So what I was trying to say with that point is that we did kind of keep to deadlines where we worked in those bursts to get to the deadline, but then because it was such a like long burst, by the end everyone was like drained, and if it was like I'll do this and like this other little small thing, a lot of little small things didn't get done, and so things were kind of pushed back a little bit, and so this led to more bursts, and it was a really bad cycle that I think ended up happening. Oh.
Do you think if you planned for the bursts, it would be better?
I think
like if you actually scheduled meetings at 3 a.m. before.
So I think it was more like we needed more granularity in the deadline. So we'd say, let's get this bucket of things done by this day, and that would sort of, you know, people procrastinate. We have other work to do, and like, okay, well, I have to do this other deadline for this other class is due first, and leave everything for this until later, until you're finished with every other class. So if you leave like smaller tasks more like spread out throughout the week, I think that would sort of enforce a more, I'll work a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow, as opposed to I'll work a whole ton 2 days from today, which is what ended up happening.
Yeah, we also didn't have a dedicated like Scrum Master or project manager who would like reinforce those deadlines and like tell people, yell at them to get it done.
Yeah, you just kind of would get an email like saying, you know, I have something to do at midnight, I'll start working at this after midnight, and so a lot of times that would happen, and then things like got pushed back because that person didn't get that done, and so kind of have to wait.
But everything got done.
But everything got done.
And it's very cute. I feel like that's what really matters.
So yeah. Right.
Do you have any thoughts on how you might better organize your communications on another project? How do you still have that good level of communication, but have it be something we can spend less time doing?
So I think a big problem we had is we had just one enormous email thread, which became huge and monolithic and impossible to look through after a certain point. I think it would have been more helpful to break up into smaller email threads. So like, people that were working on one specific feature in code, not everyone needs to receive all those emails. So it would have been, I think, really helpful for the future to maybe organize it in the sense that if me and Jenny are working on something, we email each other a lot, and at the end of the day, we send one email like, you know, here are the details that everyone needs to know. You don't need to receive like the 10,000 emails we sent before that. So at the same, keep everyone in the loop. Like, don't leave people out of the loop, but sort of keep little pockets of communication so that everyone's not flooded with all this.
And even having the designated Scrum Master, I think, would help with that a lot. Because then, you know, it's not even they're sending it out to, like, the group email thread. They're sending it to the Scrum Master, and the Scrum Master, like, makes one thing. It would be really tiresome to do that every day, though. So maybe, like, every other day or something. I'm not really sure how to, like, break that up. Because it seems like you'll just end up having a lot of things, like a lot of reports. Like, report, this was done on this day, this was done on this day, and, like...
Did you have any sort of central ways to track what tasks were done and maybe come?
We had like the Google Doc with like the change log. Yeah.
The change log. I mean, for people like updating, changing like task lists or anything like that.
I think that was mostly done in like, so we'd say these are the set of tasks we want to finish like today or something, and then for example, I'm going to work on this. I send out an email saying I'm going to work on this scene. No one touch it. Okay, I'm done working on the scene. And then once everyone finished working on all the scenes, then we go back and update the doc. That sort of thing.
It does feel like we probably could have done some kind of weird joint thing where the sprint task list keeps track of like bigger things, and then we have like some kind of chat email system going on, like make sure you stay in contact, especially with like all community madness. At the same time, it's a little bit like, so like what level of task size goes into the sprint task list? Because sometimes you can put something really small. It's like, yeah, this is what we spent the last 2 hours doing. What do we do now? Maybe kind of. That's the chopping task stuff in the task bits.
Yeah.
That's hard.
But ideally, you have those listed out somewhere. That's kind of what, if you can figure out a way to have something strung where whether it's just a list in Google Doc where people say, hey, you gotta finish this task, and some of that takes some task list based on that. Or if you go to using a fancy chart list or something like that.
Thank you.
Hi. So I'm going to be talking about Score High. This is actually our start screen. So just in case you don't remember what Score High is, it was a game where you played as an MIT student. You went around to different buildings, did your homework assignments, ate, slept, and basically just tried to survive school. So I'm going to start off by talking about what went poorly. And the first thing we had an issue with was direction. So this time we didn't have a paper prototype. We had an idea that we wanted to do, but it ended up changing a lot right from the start. And it became really difficult to stay on topic because we didn't really know what we were doing. And very much related to that, we then had issues with scope. We started off with a lot of unrelated features and a lot of components. And even now in our final game, there are a lot of components, and the way they interact is complicated sometimes. And then finally, I think every single team has mentioned this, just planning ahead and getting work done earlier and planning time to work together. The issues we had, especially that came up later, were a lot of issues with midterms, things going wrong. Everything that could go wrong kind of went wrong, and if we had started earlier, we would have been able to deal with those situations better. Okay. So based on that, what went well? Well, the great thing is that we did start right away just setting up everything we needed to work. We set up our email thread, our Google Drive folder, we decided on Unity first meeting, and we set up a GitHub project right away so that we could all collaborate. And the nice thing was, in our Google Drive folder, we put our task list. We really utilized that. And our email thread, like other teams said, it did get a little long and complex, but it was just so nice to have. And later on, we actually also got a group text messaging service. So that worked really well, dealing with that last-minute hustle kind of stuff. The next thing that went really well is I told you that our scope was way out there. We realized that very quickly, and we just started cutting. So we cut items, we cut interactive AI characters, we cut playable quizzes, we just cut everything that wasn't key because our game, even without all of these things, already had a lot of components. And then once we had a playable game, the next thing we did was we really looked into feedback. So one of the main feedbacks we got was our game was not visually cohesive. It did not make sense. The nice thing about Score High was that because you're playing as an MIT student, you're just getting work done, people understood how to play and what they were supposed to do, but they didn't understand that. So if you look at the thing on the left, you're probably all just staring at it being like, what's that? Where the rectangles are buildings and the bottom's the stats bar and the right is the schedule. It's confusing. People didn't notice the stat bars, or they thought they were buildings and things like that. So we responded to that right away, and we said, we need to clarify this. We need to separate the status, separate the schedule, and make the map very clearly pretty and easy to get around. So that was one thing we responded to, and I think it went well. The next thing that we responded to feedback was we really listened to players, not only on big picture, but on smaller things. Players wanted WASD, so we put WASD. They wanted a clear way to leave buildings. They wanted to know what was going on when they were in a building. So we actually inserted a progress bar that says, what's going on in this building? How is it affecting you? And then to leave, instead of pressing spacebar, which people found unintuitive, they press a button that says leave. Much more intuitive. Okay. Now, given all of that, we did make a really good game, but there are definitely some things we would change if we were to do it again. as I mentioned before, start with something simpler. We did not design the game around the scope of the project, and if we were to do this again, we definitely would. We tried to bite off more than we could chew. And related to that, minimize the number of components and understand how they will interact. Because especially if you're trying to break down tasks, people need to know what has to be conveyed between different components. Plan for the worst. Midterms suck, people get sick or go out of town, and laptops break. Literally all of these things happen to us. We're still waiting to hear, is the laptop working? We don't know. Somebody's laptop broke last night. So, and they were working on something and finishing it up, and suddenly all that work's gone. So, as I said, start earlier, plan for the worst, and just get things done. Finally, it worked out really well, and thanks for listening. Any questions? Any questions? No? Yeah, Unity. Cool. I'm going to take that as no questions.
Great, thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much, and actually a round of applause for everyone here. You actually did a really great job. I think we're going to give you more detailed feedback in a few days, but I think one thing we heard definitely is, by working in these large teams, you're coming across these issues that you don't necessarily, you still need tools to come up to get over some of the management issues you're finding out, the communication issues you're having, the scheduling issues you're having. Part of this is just experience. That's kind of why we just throw you in the deep end, is just to figure out what are all the problems so that we can then talk about and have some common things to talk about how we're going to solve those things. Looking at the schedule, we'll probably end up moving a couple things earlier. Did you have a comment?
I just wanted to make one comment. It's possible your groups might be slightly larger for the next project. I know, yeah. But you've got a lot more time because you've got 7 to 8 weeks. And what I really want to encourage you guys to do is, if you realize you're having communication and organization problems with your group, if you're not sure how to organize things or if it's not working, stop by the office and talk to us. I don't think we said this clearly enough in the previous projects, but we're not, yes, our goal is in fact to throw you out into the deep end, but we're not trying to throw you out in the deep end without, at least a floaty to hold on to or a safety rope or something. We are happy to sit down and talk with you, a small member of your group or your whole group, about how to come up with some individualized solutions to your team's communication and organizational problems, okay?
Just a reminder, if you don't know where our office is, it's in the syllabus. It's in building 26 on the ground floor. You can see our rooms all have the MIT Game Lab logo on it. And what Rick was saying about tools, not all our tools are like mechanical tools. Not all our tools are like, things that you put in a spreadsheet. The things like the meetings that we've been talking about, where you're actually supposed to talk to each other, it's important to actually talk to each other during those meetings, for instance. Of course, if you don't have a way to be able to schedule those meetings because it's hard to get people together, you need to find a replacement to be able to have those opportunities to talk with each other. You can't just say, well, we don't have time to do this thing, therefore we're not going to do it. However, this being the final project, you're going to have a lot of flexibility to try out different ways to communicate with your team. So what worked in your previous projects should give you a good basis of what you can do in the future, but may not necessarily work with your future team because it might be different groups of people. And learn from the previous three projects about what worked, try it out, and if that doesn't work, try something different. You have time this time around, although still 8 weeks goes by really, really, really fast. So don't overscope.
So we actually are running really short on time today. We've got a really long, a lot of content that Pablo's going to go over with us. So let's take a 5-minute break. I'm actually going to skip the Project 4 introduction, and I will put the slides up on Stellar, and I will give that on Monday morning. It's really just me saying out loud what all the Monday class. Don't take everything I say literally. The spirit. Monday at 1 o'clock. The slides will be up. I'm really just going over what it actually says in the schedule by saying it out loud so you can hear it and see it. But we'll do that on Monday. So take a break right now, and I'm going to get Pablo set up. You can see some folks, Pablo?
I can in the distance, yes. Hello, everyone.
Hey. So let me crank up the volume. All right, the room is yours.
All right.
Whoa, loud.
Well, thank you again to all of you for still being there. Thanks to the team in charge of the course for persevering with the invitation and the guidance on how to use this time. I'm sure you, or at least some of you, should remember the slide that I hope is on the screen. There's a comfort zone where people feel it's safe, and most often where people are safe, not enough happens. And one of the reasons why I hope we can put together is to see if we can create through games the magic circles that are slightly outside of the comfort zone of people, be it a Red Cross volunteer, a Red Cross staff, a person who is a scholar, a donor, a government official, to try to make something new happen. And that something new can be just understanding, it can be about dialogue, it can be about perceptions, or it can be about some of the ingredients that eventually lead to action. So now let's see if this thing changes. Did you see a changing slide?
Yes.
Good. So let me move this thing. We're going to start by playing, Phil. I'm going to invite everybody to stand up. And Rick, can I ask you and someone to partner up with you to be in a place where I can see you?
Okay.
And maybe Sarah or whoever you choose. Let's do some.
Yep. Where are we in the camera? Hey, there we go. Cool.
There you go.
Stand.
So everybody's fine? Yeah, right. When I stand up, I think. So everybody find a partner, shake hands with your partner. Everybody has.
Okay. Oh no, it's cutting out.
What you're going to do now is each one of the two in the duo is going to hold an imaginary deck of cards.
You've dropped out.
Oh no.
How's our network?
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of network drops here.
Yeah.
Okay, may I suggest the following then?
Yes.
If it is a matter of bandwidth, you can stop your video and that should work.
Okay.
Otherwise,
we will do that.
You'll be in charge of through audio making sure that I know.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it dropped again.
That you're still there and kind of following. Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear
so
you.
Each one of you is going to hold an imaginary deck of cards. Cards are numbered 1 to 10. And I want you to shuffle these imaginary cards. I want you to take the top half of the deck and swap it with your partner. And then you shuffle again those imaginary cards. So you should have a lot of imaginary cards numbered 1 to 10 in random order. If you're thinking, what does this have to do with Red Cross? We'll get there. So now, this is crucial. Each one of you is going to take the top imaginary card, make some body movement to reveal the moment when you're flipping it, and simultaneously state the number that is on the top card. For example, Philip, can you illustrate?
Yep.
Great. Say your number at the same time.
4.
6. Oh hey, you don't have 10 fingers.
Try again using body language to make sure it's simultaneous.
Right?
1, 2, 3, 5. 5.
All right. So I couldn't hear the number, but first of all, you don't need to say 1, 2, 3. You can use body language to make it happen simultaneously. It's clear advantage to make it as fast as possible.
Okay.
Two things can happen. If the two players say different numbers, there's no consequence, and you try again with a different number.
The video is slowing down.
The same number, whichever you want. Okay, is the audio okay?
Yeah, the audio is cutting out and the video is pausing. Do you want to just switch back to me controlling the slides and you on audio only?
Sure.
Okay, let's do that.
I think he can just turn off his...
If you just go ahead and turn off your video, and I'll make sure I have slides.
All right, yes. Let me get back to this. How do we do it? There.
Cool.
Okay.
So let me go back to
the audio now better?
So far, yeah.
Okay, good. So what I was going to say is that the two players are going to say numbers simultaneously. If the two numbers stated simultaneously are different, you keep going. You keep saying numbers at the same time. But if the two players say the same number at the same time, the first player to say snap takes all the imaginary cards and wins one imaginary point.
Okay.
You keep going, okay? And you start again. The purpose is in 1 minute or less to snap as much as you can. Those are the rules. Shuffle your cards. Ready, set, and go. You have less than a minute.
5, 6, 2, 10, 7, 8, 9, 12, 1, 7, 5, 3, 10, 4, 3, snap!
You get the point. 1, 5, 2, 9, 7, 8, stop!
Oh, there you get a point.
All right.
9, 10, 4, 7, 2, 1, 5,
I think you got it. Okay, all right. 2, 3, 7, 8, stop! Okay, you got 2 points. Okay, all right. Is that good? Okay. 5, 2, 9, 3, 6, 12, 1, 8, 9, 10, 4, 2, 5, 6, 7, 2, 3, snap! Okay, all right. I think you win. I think you just win this game. No, that's good.
Are you talking? I can't hear you. Should I shut them up? Okay. All right. Can we hear you?
Well, I was actually trying to be heard for the past 30 seconds. Okay, so what we're going to do now, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Good. What you're going to do now is to we're going to play a second round with the 2 mile differences. The first mile difference, don't do it yet, but you have to shake hands with a different person. You'll find a new partner.
Okay.
The second difference is that instead of having numbers 1 to 10, you're going to have the names of animals. Each one of you should know more than 10 animals, so it shouldn't be a problem. Find your partner, shake hands,
someone else.
shuffle your deck, swap.
Oh.
And
okay, you guys play.
Stop it in 30 seconds or less.
In 30 seconds.
Somebody else, right?
Yep.
So let's do somebody else. How about I play with you, you play break.
Go!
Shake hands, yeah, animals, okay? Okay. Zebra, ant, aardvark.
No, you just come up with what?
Chicken, cow,
dog,
Pig.
Hippo. Dog.
Snap. Snap.
I got that one.
All right.
All right, wait, 30 seconds. Okay, all right. Back to the
Spider.
screen. Okay.
Eagle.
Okay. All right, Pablo, you're back.
It's much harder.
So, even though I am not in the room, can you hear me, guys? Good. Even though I am not in the room, I imagine that what usually happens may have happened again here. First of all, it seems much harder to snap. Second, more people find themselves going, and not saying an animal. There's like clogging of the brain cells. And then, very interestingly, very often, people don't listen to each other. So, for example, the first time I played, I was saying dog, cat, mouse, and my partner was saying zebra, giraffe, lion. And it took us a long time to notice that we were in different universes, that we were never going to snap. And then, interestingly, when you finally say the same words, a lot of people don't snap. Their brain cells did not get into that place. So we're going to play the last round. I want you to go back to your original partner, and in your deck of cards, you're not going to have numbers 1 to 10. You're not going to have animals. You're going to have words or concepts that you associate with the red cross. Whatever you want.
Okay.
It has to be short. 3 words or less.
Okay.
So and of course you're trying to snap. So you have 10 seconds to snap.
Okay.
Yep.
30 seconds or less, please.
Okay, I shall.
Ready, set,
go. I need to look at them.
Okay.
Because I need the clock.
You want to try this? Okay. One.
Anything about Red Cross?
Yeah. Health. War.
Red.
Bands. People.
Okay.
Oh, snap. Okay.
All right, back to the screen.
Okay. All right. Pablo.
All right. Back to you, Pablo.
Okay, thank you all. If what usually happens in this game happened in the room, first of all, it's even more difficult for people to come up with words. It's even more difficult to snap. And much more than before, people realize in the process of trying to play this game that they don't really know what they think about the subject matter being proposed in the third round of the game. So what I'm going to invite you to do now is very quickly form groups of 3. Don't start yet. Let me finish explaining. Form groups of 3.
Oh no. Your audio just cut out and the video just cut out. Are you back?
I cannot hear you.
Can you hear us now?
Okay, now I can hear you.
Yeah, the audio just cut out briefly, but you're back again.
Okay, good. Now I'm back with audio. And
You're
video.
back with audio. I don't see the video, but I've got the slide up.
So let me take the video out there. So what we're going to do now, if you can hear me,
yes,
is to form groups of about 3 people, preferably 3 unless you really can. And you're going to, as a trio, write 4 terms, 4 things that you could have wanted to write in that last deck of cards. Is it clear? So it's not about numbers, it's not about animals, it's about where they're constantly associated with the Red Cross. Form a trio and write 4 things that you hope could be in the deck of cards so you can try to snap. Go, you have 3 minutes.
Everyone gets 4 cards.
Actually, you could just use strat paper too. This is just in case you don't have any.
Have enough cards? I got another deck here. More cards? Yeah, there's a pile here. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Extras? Yeah, everyone has 4, right? Oh, in groups of 3. Yeah, I'll give you a few extra just in case you make a mistake.
Rick, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, so I want you to give them no more than 30 seconds left.
Okay.
And let them know that time is running out.
All right, 30 seconds left.
And then Rick, what is that going?
The slide is showing, yeah.
Sorry?
The slide?
No, well, yeah, actually, let's suspend. No slide yet.
Okay.
You just do it.
Okay.
What I want you to do is to pick some trio, ask the trio to choose one of the words or concepts that you have in the card, and invite all the other groups to say snap if they wrote that exact term.
Okay. Did we get that? So one trio, come up and give one of your terms. Just stand up and so there you go. So what's one of your terms? Disaster relief. Snap. Snap. How many? Snap. 3.
Okay,
so you had 4 or 5.
Trio.
Okay, another one.
Another trio to say one of the words.
All right, John.
Red.
What was the word? Red.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so do the same with a few more trios, maybe 3 or 4 more trios.
Okay. What's that? Blood donations. Snap, 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 snap. Okay. Another trio? Yeah. Aid. Snap, snap, snap. All right. Another one? CPR. No CPR?
Interesting. No snapping with that one, huh?
Okay.
Okay. So, there are 2 reasons why I wanted to do this. Thank you all very much. If we had the time, we play this game in a version that has winners and losers, where we would, eliminate the most and the least snapped, and the second most, second least snapped are the winners, for example. So you have to choose which of your cards to say. So there are 2 reasons why I wanted to share this with you. One is to re-energize the room, bring it back into the game zone. And second one, give the flavor of one of the games that I hope maybe some of you would consider playing. When we play this game in the context of a training workshop, for example, we play at the very beginning, first with numbers, then with animals, and then with the subject matter of the course, which can be climate change, can be humanitarian law, can be El Niño, can be shelter, can be urban risk. And people come up with words, and they write them down, and we keep those papers. And then, after training, which can be an hour or a day or a week, we play snapping. And we ask them to form different trios and to write the words that they will include in the game. And that collection allows us to compare the before and the after, and how the thinking changed. Rick, if you can show a slide that has the 2 word clouds.
Yep, got that.
So in that word cloud, let me change this here. This is from where we played about insurance. The one on the left was the before, and you see prompt and risk, money, premium, accident, disaster. When we played the game afterwards, there were more nuanced terms. There was community, there was collective, there was buffer, there was future, there was return, there was long term. And this was very useful for us to see how the thinking changed as a result of the session. So, moving on to the next slide that says choices for your gaming project. These are the 6 choices that we want to make available to you. The 0 one is to create a digital version of a game that could be played along the lines of what you just did, but for us to accelerate the collection of data, so that everyone can see at the same time what just happened. I'll explain more later. Then in the list you see UNICEF GAN, and this is about cholera, a waterborne disease that's very tough. And we invite 2 groups, if possible, to take this one because it's an important one to us. And it's about helping school children in West Africa to manage health risks. The next one is about linking early warning, forecast, with early action, decisions that can help save time. Since it is 75 in Boston and Cambridge today, we thought it would be relevant to say that we want to focus on heat waves. We could make it about hurricanes, we could make it about volcanic eruptions, we could make it about many things, but we invite heat waves because there are a few reasons that make it useful for us. The next one is perhaps the most challenging one intellectually. It's about new funding mechanisms for disaster preparedness. I will explain this. We call it forecast-based financing, or FBF. And it's the one that has the most potential to transform the humanitarian world. The fourth one is about Ebola. As you can imagine, this is a very challenging time for my colleagues, and maybe some of you can give a hand. And the last one involves adaptation to climate change. I think you may have met Jano, my partner in game design facilitation at Life. She's leading a project for an organization called Planet International, focuses on work with children as well. So moving on to the next slide. Before we go into the details of each one of those potential topics, I wanted to share with you some thoughts about why digital games for these things. As you remember, hopefully from the previous visit from my team, the vast majority of our games have been non-digital. We've played them face-to-face. They have been very good for what they were intended to do, but they were reaching a very small group of people, only those who were there. Recently, we designed our first, collaborated in the design of our first digital game that was to be used in a MOOC with the word plan, and it reached 35,000 people, which I'm pretty sure is double the number of people that since the beginning of my work with games have been playing games that are non-digital. There's clearly a lot of potential to reach to many, many people. And we're thinking of Red Cross staff, colleagues of mine who have a job as disaster managers, as disaster response experts, as whatever it may be. There's also Red Cross volunteers, people who are not paid to do some work. It could be digital games. The people are basically people who would make some decisions to save their lives or save others in the neighborhood. It could be about youth, school children, who maybe don't know something could learn through games or have motivations that could inspire through digital games. And there's also the bigger picture of potential, especially now in a time where there's crowdfunding, there's people who have the ability to act in massive numbers, make little things that make a big difference. A second is that games, including digital games, can do one ingredient of the many ingredients needed to support behavior change. We are not wildly optimistic, and we believe that someone lives a life in a certain way and then they play a game and boom, they're a different person and they change their behavior. Maybe that can happen, but we're aware that it takes more than a simple game to play, to change mind. But we believe that games can help invite people to change behavior in a more memorable way. It can be about creating awareness, it can be about creating the desire, the want to learn more. It can be about awakening the interest, the appetite. Or it can be about inspiring people to take something they know or they already know and put it into motion, put it into action. Importantly, because of increasingly, the last bullet, there's so much growth in digital technology, in people who can program, in people who have cell phones and so on in rural Africa, that we see a lot of prospect for growth within our team designing and deploying digital games, particularly with UNICEF, but also with many that involve self-organization of the crowd. So moving on, actually before I move on to the next one, Rick, would you like to either inject anything or invite questions at this stage before moving to the details of each game?
Sure. So yeah, any questions about the target audience or the reasons for digital games before we move on? Yeah, one question?
Will we be able to play test with our target audience, or?
So play testing with the target audience. Are any of these folks in the Boston area that we could invite in for a playtest session?
Almost certainly not. So what we can do is to play the games with people who are as close as we can get. So, school children in Boston are different from school children in West Africa. But I bet that some commodities. There's a lot you can learn about your prototype for GAN if you play with children in Cambridge or Dorchester.
Okay.
Having said that, you may be able to get colleagues in developing countries to download your code and play it in Africa, in Latin America, or elsewhere. So I'm not giving up on the possibility for playtest with the target audience, but it is in the nature of its work to work for the benefit of developing countries. So we'll have to accept that there's going to be a limited ability to playtest, and that's something that can happen in the early phases of the product design. Mm-hmm. Basically, we could do it if you had the budget for a plane ticket, and it can be hard.
Is there another question I saw? Yeah.
Are you envisioning this being used as a one-on-one thing where one person is playing a game, or are you envisioning this being used as sort of an alternative to a presentation similar to the games that we've seen here?
Yeah, it depends on the game. Generally speaking, mostly because of the likely limitations in your ability as students to design and deploy games, we are sticking to ideas that can be implemented for one player, one computer, one device, and that's a game theory.
Yeah.
Which can happen in the house, happen in the street, can waiting for the bus, or can happen as a group in the context of a workshop, but we decided not for multiplayer or more sophisticated endeavors.
Yep. So yeah, when I talk about the further about the constraints on Monday, I'll be mentioning that you could do single player or multiplayer game, but it'd be single device, no networking. And we are asking you to think about the spectator experience. So what does it look like to be looking over the shoulder? What does it look like to be looking down on the table if it's an iPad game or a tablet game? What is it like if somebody's playing the game on a screen like this? Consider one of those and design it towards one of those. Yeah.
So by school children, is this elementary, middle, or high school? And also, can we assume they speak English?
So for school children, is there a particular age range, elementary, middle, or high? And is there an English language assumption going on?
Yes. So yes to English. It will be in countries where the official language is English, and school children go to school and learn math and so on in English. And different projects have different age ranges. But generally speaking, it's 12 to 8. The ones that are about school children and others are not about school. So we'll get to that, the details of each game. So move on. If you want to press the slide for the next one, thumbs up. Those of you who were at the game session the previous time I visited may remember the game where you were all standing and there was a die and a 6 was mushrooming. And if there was a 6, you had to do the umbrella, otherwise you had to do thumbs up. At the core, if you push again, you will see the little sitting dude with long-term investment and the running dude with a reaction.
Yes.
Those are the two basic pieces that we generally embed. You either do the usual or do something new. And what we want for the game is to continue to play the idea that you can't make wrong decisions, that is negative consequences. But it's very hard to know whether the decision is the right one or the wrong one before the disaster has materialized. I imagine most of you in the process of designing games will digitally incarnate some core mechanic that bets that. The player is going to say, do I do the usual thumbs up or do I start running with umbrella? It will depend, of course, if it's a game about health, an umbrella won't be it, right? It will be some other measure, but you get the point. It's about the preventive act. The next slide, which I also showed the previous, this is for what we want. We want players to experience an aha moment, a moment of discovery, that is the result of the process where they go through some not knowing what the next choice is. Otherwise, it will be too obvious, it will be equivalent to a PowerPoint, and I predict it would be boring. So good luck to all of you coming up with the right balance between who and ah. So moving to the next one. This is about the first idea for possible group project. It is in the context of this game that you just played. As mentioned, when we play with group, we can very quickly connect all the cards produced by groups of 3, and we can quickly enter them in computer connected to the internet and produce a word cloud before and after. So people can see at the end of the workshop how their own thinking has changed. Now, when we went through the activity of Rick pointing to a idea of choosing a word like blood donation and other people saying snap, if you have 50 people in the room, it becomes much more difficult, because if you do it with everyone, it becomes boring. So what I invite you to consider is to create a digital tool that can be embedded or utilized or deployed to amplify the snap experience, so that we can collect and process information about what people are thinking. So it will be face-to-face, just like you are there. But I imagine digital interface, this could be made with 3,000 people in auditorium. And then each 3 of enters words. And then there's some game mechanic that it's an incentive and enriches the experience, that gives clarity of the task, that helps people visualize the result, and that helps us to collect and analyze the data, to assess the impact, to monitor, to evaluate, and eventually to support the dissemination of this particular concept. Because folks, you have no idea how loud I was shouting at the first round. Stop, and you were so energized. That's great. We love that. But we need to channel that so it becomes more useful to the subject. So the chances of it raise, if you deliver some game prototype that works, it's near guaranteed that we will use it. If your tool helps us collect information in a somewhat playful way and share it and think about it, we're going to use it. And we're going to use it in 5 continents, starting the day after you deliver. There are resources for this. There are documents that have produced, one for the World Bank of Data for Resilience Initiative, and you can also consult with me. I know should be nearby some of the time if you have any questions about it. Rick, do you prefer that keep cooking, or do we give for 2 questions on this one?
I think
is that a question?
I'm asking you if you prefer that we move on to the next game idea, or if we pause and invite for questions.
Let's do questions after each idea, just really briefly. So any questions about this game? Yeah.
I thought we're not supposed to make anything that's to do with the network.
Yeah, so in this game there is a little bit of networking going on. If you were to do this game, it would mean it's not a multiplayer networking experience, but you are transmitting data to some kind of server. So that's where this one gets hairy. This would be It looks like a simple design, but it's actually there's a bigger back end to this one.
Yeah, this is possibly, just by looking at that full list, possibly technically the most difficult one because of it looks like it's still a networking game, even though we are encouraging you to do single player, single device.
Yeah.
So
and designing for touch is very difficult too. So
yeah.
it just kind of, it gets big.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
That probably is a middle ground where you can think of, all right, what can be done with a single computer that would still make it easier for someone like Pablo to be able to run this in a workshop, for instance. Even just making his job slightly easier. Remember, we just played this game with imaginary things, right? What can we do to that doesn't require the players to have a device, but speeds up the process from a sort of central computer, to be able to say collective data. I don't know what that will look like. That will be more of a design challenge rather than a technical challenge, but possibly more feasible for the size of this class.
And it could be that the results are not shared in real time. But if people have a cell phone, they can just send an email with the words to some address, and then some interface that looks that, and then someone punching buttons distills that. That is still matter than we're doing now, which is to collect the pieces of paper, write them ourselves. We don't understand the handwriting and so on. So, as was said before, any ideas that you may have to enrich the experience or to improve the collection analysis of data would be appreciated. If no group chooses this one, no problem.
Okay. All right, so let's move on. Actually, Pablo, can you turn off the screen sharing? Maybe that will speed up the...
Oh, I wasn't aware that I wasn't sharing.
Yeah, I just noticed it too.
Here it says that I am not sharing. Weird. Let me go to this. Stop sharing screen.
There we go. Cool. So let's go to the next one.
Next one is the important one. It's the UNICEF Ghana. UNICEF is the most loved UN agency. I don't have evidence to back that statement. Generally speaking, it's one of the very well-paid UN agencies. It works with children and education, and it does very good humanitarian work. And the team in Ghana has decided to reach out to the Climate Center. Originally, it was in the context of cholera, but they also have some money for Ebola and cholera. And they want us to design games for school children to help them become familiar with and improve management of risks associated with health. I have no contract yet, but it's very likely that this relationship will grow, and will grow in time, and will grow in size, and will be able to get into the digital very soon. So the context is that cholera, a waterborne disease, is on the rise, in part because of population growth, in part because of urbanization, in part because of changing character of flooding, access to water, and so on. Almost a billion and a half people risk of getting cholera in countries where the disease is endemic. There are 2 to 5 million cases per year, and if you never experienced it, I can assure you it leads to a very miserable experience. It's a venereal disease, and of course it changes from one year to the next, but there's 100,000 people dying out of cholera every year, and that's not good. And importantly, many of those deaths are avoidable if certain measures are taken. Some of those measures are difficult. For example, providing clean water to drink. That is not something you can do in 5 minutes. But other things are more manageable. For example, how to deal with flooding and protection of water sources, or basic hygiene and using soap, and many other simple things. So we have a one project, work with children in Ghana. Rick and Tim have all details of the project description. The purpose is to help reduce the risk of waterborne diseases, particularly cholera. The chances of arrest are very likely for this to be something to be further developed. I would be very surprised between now and December you can produce something that is ready to deploy to thousands and thousands of children. But if any of you come up with a cool concept with a clean, clear, useful game mechanic, etc., then maybe it can become, a direct study or a thesis, or someone could be hired with money to develop that effort. There's the cholera toolkit, which if you click to show the next slide, you see a screen capture. There's a chapter 1 introduction, the basics, understand the situation, how to prevent it, how to coordinate, how to prepare, community aspects, all sorts of things. The toolkit by UNICEF is extremely rich and detailed. And we are now conversing with them. Actually, within 2 days, we should be getting from them which are the key things that they need children to learn to experience into practice. So whoever ends up taking this challenge, and we hope it will be 2 groups, is going to be something that is very directly capable of saving lives. And that must feel good for whoever successfully takes on that challenge. I do not remember the age group, but I'm pretty sure it was less than 18 and more than 10. But it may be more narrow than that. I don't remember. Ghana is an English-speaking country. It's a gem, East Africa, in terms of institutions and so on. The UNICEF team worked with very good, very strong, very dedicated, and very interesting games. I'm going to pause here and invite for the questions.
Any questions about this one? Okay, no questions on this one.
Very good. Was either very boring or very clear. Moving on to the next one. If you have in screen slideshow, you can see all the text.
Yep.
Good. So this is about linking early warning with early action. Science can give us forecast of something that's likely to happen in the foreseeable future. There are timescales that can be at the seasonal level, like El Nino, and weeks to months. We're more likely to focus on the hours to days lead time. In the case of hurricanes, that's very useful, but there's a lot being done. In the case of heat waves, that's not very much explored. And the issue with heat waves is, on one hand, because of global warming and the changing climate, the risk of heat waves is very steep on the rise. You remember from almost about a decade ago, Netherlands, France, Belgium, they had tens of thousands of people die because of the heat. And most of those people died for very, very avoidable reasons. So if you're elderly, with respiratory problems, you have certain health conditions, very simple things like being in a colder room with air conditioning or drinking more than you want, that alone can be enough. Construction workers or sports collapse. All you need to do is to suspend the competition or to give track workers a break at the peak midday hours. So it's very easy to save lives. There's no awareness of this, and it consistently gets people by surprise. So the purpose of this game will be to support Red Cross net, especially volunteers at the neighborhood level, so they can learn what are the simple actions that can be taken to save lives, not only own, but more importantly, the lives of vulnerable members of the community. The chances of increase, I think, are also pretty big, but in a little bit more of a timeline, so it will be that we start putting in January. It will need some publishing because there are some institutional needs to embed. Once the game exists, it has to go through Red Cross channels, which can be more complicated than doing it through school children, where if it's picked up, it goes viral quickly. But it's still a very good one. Again, it's one that can lead to saving real lives. And there are plenty of resources within the Red Cross and beyond. Very importantly, there's a master's student at Harvard who's doing her entire thesis on this, and we're going to have at least one, maybe two hackathons dealing with heat wave risk. The Harvard student, her name is Elle, she's really great fun, and she would be a collaborator, and this will have a lot of chances of growth. If you click, you will see a photo from the Netherlands heat wave, a Red Cross volunteer helping an elderly lady just hydrate, and that lady did not die, whereas tens of thousands did. Can you come up with a game that helps people take such simple decisions? And I'm sure there's a way to make it fun. So, over to you. One or two questions?
Any questions on this one? So the target audience on this one's different. It's Red Cross volunteers and staffers, probably as part of their training?
Correct.
Okay.
So the way we envision this, actually I didn't mention, the way we envision this one is to have the game as ready deployable, but on the shelf. And then when there's a forecast of a heat wave likely to happen over the coming 6 days, then we blast the game to the Red Cross volunteers so that they become very quickly familiar with the very core aspect of it, of course complemented with other things like maybe face-to-face training or maybe sending documents to read. But this would be potentially very easy to adapt or translate to many languages. And again, Chicago, Boston, there's plenty of places, even in the US. This is the one that will be easiest to play test locally because we can, and you know, the profile of a Red Cross volunteer is not necessarily too different from the profile of university students who are engaged in do-good activities.
Okay, go on to the next one.
All right, moving to the next one. The next one is the most complex. Do you see the drawing of the time bomb with the fuse?
Yes.
Okay. So, allow me to give a little bit of context. We did a little bit of this conversation when I showed up a few weeks ago, but I imagine you all forgot by now. The humanitarian sector has two main funding mechanisms. Imagine a pot of money. Even if there's almost no money there, if the pot exists, money can go in to then be taken out to spend. One of the pots of money that exists, one of the funding mechanisms that exists, is for disaster response. Meaning, a hurricane, a flood, a volcanic eruption, something has already happened, is happening, and is killing people. People are dying, but if you did something, you could save lives. For example, get on a boat and rescue people who are stranded on a roof. Or people are sick, go give them medicine. This is disaster response, and if you spend money, you can do very good things. And the funding mechanism exists. There is another pot of money which is for a normal day. The Red Cross has vehicles, the vehicles need maintenance, they need to change tires. You need to buy a new computer, you need to pay rent and electricity bills, you need to train staff. So on a normal day, you have a budget for either maintenance or development of new projects or writing proposals and so on. And that pot of money exists. We call it the annual appeal. Every year we appeal for help. And people or donors or governments give us some money. What does not exist is what the drawing, the cartoon depicts, which is when there's a signal from science that a disaster, that something bad is likely to happen soon. We don't have money to fund action before the disaster, after the forecast. So if you click to see the text, the context is that there's that missing money pot. We have money for after the disaster, we have money for the normal day, but we don't have money for before the disaster, after the forecast. The issue is that if you spend money in that time window, before the disaster, after science says the disaster is likely, you can do very good things for very cheap and relatively simply and much more reliably. It's not only more expensive but more difficult to save a life when the storm waters are flashing through a city and people are about to drown. The boat is unstable. Whereas if you do it the day before, when the water has come down from the sky but it's still in the river and not in the city, people can take action by just walking away on their own means with their valuables and not just depending on someone to show up with the boat. So we came up with a financial mechanism, we call it forecast-based financing for disaster preparedness, which is nuanced in how it's implemented. There's a pot of money, it's like a bank account. You need to have a threshold of disaster risk that needs to be exceeded. So it cannot be 2 drops of rain, it has to be a lot of rain. It cannot be some breeze, it has to be a hurricane category 1 or more. But once the threshold is established and reached by the forecast, then there's some standard operating procedures, some actions that people have to take, spending money to save lives. And that is something that if you could come up with a game that captures that, this is the one that if we help communicate forecast-based financing, I said to the public because it can work for a broad audience digitally, ideally we'll reach those who can contribute either money or decisions, muscle power. The chances of embrace for this one are not as high as all the previous one, but if it were to happen, it would have the highest impact because right now there's billions of dollars being spent in the 2 extremes, and if a small fraction were spent invested in that precious window of opportunity, when you see the fuse getting close, that time of effort can really have a very, very high impact. There's a link to a journal article that should be very clear for MIT students. We also have some simpler readings, and John and I have been engaged with it and are ready to help. This is, I insist, the one that is intellectually most challenging, but I think if you nail it, it will also be the most rewarding. Questions?
Any questions on this one? So one thing, when we first started designing this class, this was actually the problem that we were most interested in, mainly because the other problems we just hadn't heard about since. The cholera was a recent proposal that was asked for, and Ebola, of course, very, very recent as well. So if you really enjoyed some of the challenges from projects 2 and 3, and you really took on the planning aspects, the trade-offs aspects of those 2 games, if you're looking at kind of trying to communicate to another person how these kind of probabilities works, this is probably a really good project you might be interested in.
And I should say also that working with a few MIT teams, including the Humanitarian Response Lab, including the Environmental Engineering, we have 2 generations of 3 students plus 1 professor go to Uganda to work on making this happen for real. We got German money to do it in Togo and in Uganda. So it's beginning to happen, but it's hard to explain because it's dry. It's like explaining insurance. You know, people get bored before they get it. So maybe a game can help motivate. Good, then we move on. Number 4, Ebola. I have to be very candid. I come from climate research, climate and disasters, and as far as we know, Ebola does not have much of a climate signal, but as I'm sure you know, it's a very important thing, and the idea for bringing this up is that one of my dear colleagues, Stephen Ryan, one day sent a message saying, tonight I'm arriving in Liberia to work for a month with a Red Cross national team that is doing its best to respond to the Ebola outbreak. And guess what? What they're doing as its best is not enough. Stephen is a communications specialist. As you can imagine, I feel phenomenal admiration and respect for his dangerous choice to go to the place where people are in very serious trouble to try to help. And that made me think, well, maybe we can help. So I sent him an email, and he kindly responded saying, yes, they're keen on the possibility of a game. Bear in mind that because of the cycle of the disease, by December, chances are that either it became a complete pandemic or the wave is completely gone. So we are not going to make a game to be played in an equivalent situation as the situation now. It will be more of a game about awareness of how it works and how it can be prevented in a hopefully less than complete crisis mode. But nonetheless, Stephen and one of his colleagues were very grateful to offer themselves to be the subject matter experts to help should a team choose Ebola. Please no more than one team. There's someone on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean that is going to try to engage. In this one, Jano and I do not have expertise. I imagine it is possible to find expertise in the Boston area with so many phenomenal hospitals and so on, but it's outside of my control to offer reliable support when it comes to subject matter. I'm sure that there's plenty of documents from the CDC and from health practitioners that can help you design the game, but whoever chooses this, it'll be heroic. It can be really useful, but you have to be most prepared to work autonomously. Any questions?
Amy? Oops, mutes.
Are you guys there?
Nope, sorry, I had the microphone muted. Yep, no questions on this one.
All right. So moving on the last one. If Jano hasn't joined yet, then I'll do my best to explain.
Yep, I haven't seen her yet.
So this is a project that is being led by two of my colleagues, including Jano. So forgive my ignorance. It's fairly similar in its nature to the UNICEF one. The difference is that the UNICEF project is for school children about a very specific health condition called cholera, whereas this one is for a partner called Plan International. It's an NGO that works with children. They're very good. They work a lot on the rights of children. They are about empowerment and they work intelligently. And the Asia team has reached out to the Climate Center. I don't know if you can read the words, but in summary, they want a game to help children in Asia understand climate change and what can be done to adapt to climate change. Plan International seeks to partner with the Red Cross Red Crescent Climate Center to develop a participatory learning game for children in Asia, focused on Southeast Asia, so all the way from Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, etc., that will strengthen their understanding of local climate change impacts and help them develop ideas on what they and their community can do to adapt and increase their resilience. The project will include the development of a game package, testing, and the training of facilitators. The current project does not include a digital component because there wasn't enough money. But like the UNICEF one, this is an area that inevitably has to grow. So if any of you comes up with a prototype that is sufficiently playable to capture something about climate change, there's generally two core ideas that children can benefit from learning. One is that the trends of change are dangerous. Trends like sea level rise, like drying of some sources of drinking water, as well as the changing pattern of extreme events, which can be about rainfall, can be about temperature, can be about winds and cyclones. And so children who have not lived long and therefore don't have much of a memory are likely to have to confront information about things, extreme events, disasters that they've never experienced, but they have to do something about. So the game is not about one specific threat, but it's more about the concept of adaptation to climate change, which of course can be embedded into a specific manifestation of climate change, like sea level rise or like changing rainfall patterns. There was a more clearly defined age group for this one, which unfortunately I don't have off the top of my head, but Jean will be sending the materials to the team, so within 24 hours I predict you will have all the ingredients you need. I know I didn't share too much, but are there any questions about what I could share?
So any questions about this one? Nope, no questions on this one.
Okay, so then move on to the next slide. We have about 15 minutes left if we want. And this one is about questions comments. I'd like to get a flavor from room. You have all choices here. The first one was Snap, adding a digital tool to enhance the Snap experience of collecting and processing information. Then we have the UNICEF Ghana, cholera, where I really hope we can get to because this is the big one. Then we have linking early warning with early actions, maybe focusing on heat waves. Then we have the more sophisticated conceptually endeavor of forecast-based financing, funding mechanisms for disaster preparedness before the disaster after the forecast. Then we have Ebola, where there's not much I can offer other than if you make a game, we can try to hook you up with people, and if you come up with a good game, it can be really useful. And the final one is adaptation to climate change to be played by children in Southeast Asia so that they understand climate change. Here's what I propose. We're going to give you guys 30 seconds. Each one of you choose one or two secretly based on what you heard today, which is completely incomplete information. But that's the way it is. Given what you heard, choose one or two of those in the coming 10-15 seconds. I'll give you that time. Thanks, Rick, for your patience.
Not a problem.
And so, what we're going to do now is you're all sitting, I imagine. Actually, Rick, can you show the room?
Yep, let me go back to Skype and turn on our video. Okay.
All right. So what I want to do is I say the number, and if that number is of your chosen one, I want you to do two things. One is to stand up, and the other is to shout Snap. Because I cannot see everyone, I cannot hear everyone, but I will give you a flavor of function. So item 0, if you're ready to stand up and do. All right, so we got maybe 1 in 4 less. Excellent, make it down. Number 1, if it's of your liking, do it. All right. Good. This one, maybe all of you guys standing because I don't see enough for 2 groups. Maybe you're making them. The next one, number 2. If you're gonna do it, do it.
Oh, that's good.
All right, this one seems popular. All right. Number 3, go. All right. Thank you. Number 4, show it.
4 was the funding one.
Yes.
Okay.
3 was the funding.
Let me see. Yep, you're right. I'm wrong. 4, yeah, we're counting from 0. 4 is Ebola. All right. So yeah, nobody stood up for this one.
Okay. And it depends on your honest science. Moving to the last one, number 5. Go for it.
Okay.
Okay, so what I propose then, I don't know, Rick and team, what you had in mind for this time, but given that we went relatively fast, what we could do is you could point to different places of the room. You know, the top left of the stairs is 0, middle left is 1, and so on, and invite people to just answer with their feet which is the location that they most want to go to, so that we get a sense of how many people want to engage in which game.
Okay, so we've got it on the board. Cholera here, Ebola here, early warning here, and these are actually behind you, so I'm going to have to rotate the computer around. SNAP over there, adaptation here, and disaster prep funding, the forecast-based funding over here.
Let's draw out the numbers as well.
Oh yeah, I'll put the numbers up.
SNAP was 0. Cholera was 1. Early warning was 2. Funding was 3. Ebola was 4. And adaptation to climate change 5.
So answer with your feet. You cannot stay sitting where you were. Now, Rick and team, I'm going to invite you. Do you know best what is required for each group to be a balanced group in terms of quantity of people, in terms of profile? You know, to have only code geeks in one and then narrative geeks on the other. So, if you want to spend this, what happens now is in no way definitive, but it's to get a sense later of what happens in the room.
Yeah. So actually, this leads really well into what we're about to do. Is we're going to do some brainstorming on these topics. So we're going to first have each of the groups just do a little bit of quick brainstorming about the topic that they're standing with right now. And then midway through, we're going to invite you to go over to a new group to talk about a different project if you're interested in talking about that other project. On Monday, we're going to actually form the teams and make sure all of the teams meet our requirements, but are basically 7 to 8 people per team. We're hoping for 8 people per team. Hopefully not more than that. We'll figure that out as we go. And over the weekend, we'll be using the mailing list to talk about the projects. So I'm actually going to we're going to start off with this brainstorming. We're going to take a break. We're going to do some more brainstorming, and then I will more clearly outline how the mechanism is going to work between now and Monday.
Do you need me to stay online?
No. What we would like is if I can. Are you going to be on email between now and Monday?
Yes, but only with very limited ability to read and respond. So make sure to make the subject line very clear and the questions as snappy and answerable as possible.
Great. And you don't mind if I give all the teams your email address?
No mind, but teams, please, I beg you, consolidate your questions. Be very efficient with your writing, because if I get too many emails or too wordy, excessive verbosity, I will not be able to get.
Okay, so yeah, I'll figure out a mechanism to
define, a channel within each group to communicate and consolidate.
Okay, so yeah, I'll figure out a mechanism to make sure you're not overloaded with email and to make sure everyone gets the benefits of those emails to you.
Good, and I suggest that always copy recourse one team.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So back to you all. Thanks again for your time and inspiration, and I wish you good luck next time.
Okay. Thank you, Pablo.
Cheers.
Okay, so you are in your groups. I have paper for people who are not on chalkboards. Do we have nobody for Ebola?
No one.
Okay, then let's give Snap the Ebola. Actually, you're pretty big. Let's not. Yeah, these two groups are pretty big. Let's give them space to spread out. All right, so what we're going to do is just do a really quick brainstorm, 5 minutes. Just choose one person to be the secretary, have them come up. You've heard a little bit about the topics. You haven't done any of the reading yet. We're going to have all that reading available for you on Stellar right now for you to read over the weekend. It's a lot of it. We don't expect you to read all of it, but we do expect you to look at it. Based on what you understand, what kind of mechanics could come out of these kind of topics? Just based on the word cholera, based on the word early warning, early action, what kind of game mechanics pop out of that? And just throw them on the board. So disaster prep. Let's give. Can you hand these off to those two? And then
to disaster prep, or to more than one group, or just all
one to one and one to the other? Yeah.
Okay. We had a question back there, by the way. Rick, we have a question at the back. Yeah.
What's the question? From whom?
Yeah. Let's stick it up on the wall.
Yeah, what's up?
Or at the back. You guys probably need the stand.
Same as previous ones. We'll talk about the constraints on Monday. Don't worry about the constraints right now. Right now, just focus on game mechanics. So keep it blue sky. You can be mobile. You can be on tablets. You can be a computer. It could be single player. It can be multiplayer. It just don't do multiplayer networking. That's it. What's up?
Our game's definition is multiplayer.
Then what are the ways you're going to get around that, like we talked about? Without doing multiple devices connecting to a single server. There's other ways. Don't even think about it for this brainstorming. Just don't worry about it for now. Here you go.
Thank you.
Pass these out. All right, so 5 minutes, go.
Some.
This is in case my wife sends. Final version, they have the project managers do all the
their own project manager?
Yeah,
Oh.
they do all the. We've done about 15 minutes of really quick and dirty brainstorming. Somebody from your group, shout out one or two really, really interesting ideas that you're really excited about. Just one person, one group, interesting ideas. This group, go.
Spatial placement of wells affecting, where cholera spreads.
So spatial placement of wells affecting where cholera spreads?
Yeah, spatial.
Okay, so a spatial puzzle kind of game? Exactly. One more idea?
Animal Crossing with cholera and puzzles.
Yes, Animal Crossing. I'd think about the scope on that one. What, playing as the heat wave. Like you are the heat wave. Cool. One other idea?
Playing as a Red Cross volunteer, managing resources.
Okay, not as cool. Heat wave. We just volunteer. Over here.
You're on a tiny island and you live on the island and you do stuff on the island, but your island's shrinking, so you have to collect resources on your island to move to the bigger island. But the bigger island is shrinking too because the water keeps going up. So you hop and hop and hop and you arrive at the mainland. Yay, everyone's safe, except the mainland is a giant island too. So it's like, wah, wah, wah.
Wah, wah, climate change. Cool, thank you. Another idea? Or is that the big one?
The decision between chopping forests and to build more buildings for faster development, or to keep the forest there to help making climate change less
Cool.
severe.
So one's kind of, you don't have much action, the world is going around you. This one is kind of, you have action. The decisions you make are going to affect things. Cool. This group here. This was Snap, right? This group? One or two ideas?
So I was thinking about kind of like not just choosing words, but given a scenario, like making a particular decision, comparing it to decisions other people made given that exact same set of inputs.
Okay, so really thinking about how you're going to make this simple decision or the simple interaction that the game has, make it a little bit more complex and really kind of bring the decision making out in the forefront. Is that kind of what it sounds like? All right, cool. Yeah, what's up?
The way I understood the game, for the description for Snap was that it's more of a data collection method, like collecting what people.
That's at least the purpose they want, is they want that data. They want to collect that data, but they also want to reflect that data back. So it's a little bit of a visualization. It's actually a lot of a visualization, as much as it is collection. Cool. Are those the only groups or the only concepts? Oh yeah, disaster preparedness. Everybody disappeared. Anybody from that group want to run over to the sheet and say an idea or two? Or you just kind of, yeah.
I think we just got stuck on the brainstorming because the problem is not like as easy.
So it's hard. That's going to be a hard one. All right.
I think like one idea we came up with is like building an infrastructure and you would decide whether to keep expanding or to reinforce the structure and that way you would manage are you preparing for before the disaster or after the disaster? Do you have something to add?
I was just going to say we felt like we needed to do more reading to understand exactly what they're about.
What's something about there is something that can be built to spend that money on. So it's not just about collecting the money, it's that money's going to go somewhere. Which I remember him saying, at least, I don't know if it was a meeting with me or if it was one of the first times he came to class to talk, but I remember that came up. Okay, take a quick couple minutes, one person from each group, make a copy of all the ideas that you have on the board somehow, like a photograph or... Actually, just take a photograph of it and then come back down to your seats. Got 2 more slides, then we're going to release you.
But there's no problem with working with Paul in the church.
If I have the time, I'll send it. No, I have.
All right, so after you've taken your captures, sit down. All right, so what next? I'm going to stand in front because I can't see what my slides say. So today we brainstormed in groups on these topics. Between now and Monday, what we'd like you to do is use the mailing list, the video games at mit.edu mailing list, to form teams. In class on Monday, we will actually also set aside time in the beginning of class to make sure that all these teams get formed. And we're going to do some more brainstorming and some more pitching on Monday. And I'll go into more detail about the requirements for the Project 4. But make sure you read the Project 4 assignment. That's basically all I'm going to be doing, is just saying out loud what it says in there. So before next class, do these things. So read the material in Stellar. All the topics have some material in Stellar. The Ebola topic did not. The SNAP topic did not. But Cholera has the toolkit that he mentioned up there. Early warning, early action has it's got a task force guideline, like a idea of like world disasters from 2009, I think, and then another journal article. Disaster prep funding has that forecast-based funding journal article attached to it. Adaptation to climate change, we don't have the materials yet for that, but that should be coming in today. And that'll be put up into Stellar. That's all of that, right? Okay. So when you were in your groups, think about these questions, and think about these questions until Monday. Did you actually have 8 people interested in your topic when you were in your group together? Think back about the brainstorming. Did you see 7 other individuals interested in the topic? If you did, you could probably make a game based on that topic. If you didn't, it's going to be difficult to find people for your team. So really use the mailing list and try to figure out ways to use the mailing list to try to attract people to your topic. If there's something about like the game design that you came up with, a personal reason why you'd like to see this game get made, throw it to the mailing list. If you really don't care about the topic so much, or any of these topics, but you really want to do programming, you really want to do art, you really want to do code, whatever you want to do, if that's the thing that you're most interested in, that game engine you want to use, throw an email to the class to say, hey, use me. Here's what I'm interested in doing. Just put me on, put me on your team, basically. If you're more interested in mechanic design over the topic, that's also okay. So you might not be interested in the topic, but you're interested in some of these mechanics that we've been talking about in class, or some of the mechanics that you heard mentioned in the group brainstorm. So mention that in the mailing list. Again, team formation will be finalized on Monday, and if you are undecided, I'm just going to stick you in a team. That's the worst thing that can happen. Because if I just put you in a team, I'm not thinking about who you're going to work best with. I'm not thinking about what game engine you're working on. I'm not thinking about whether or not you're interested in the topic or not. I'm just grabbing you and sticking you on a team. So do all the work for me so I don't have to do that. And if you do just want me to do that, that's okay. I like rolling dice. Do we have any questions about this? Any concerns about this? Yes?
So are you targeting 5 teams?
No, I'm targeting teams of 8. So that's 5 teams, but it could be 4 teams if we need more people on the teams. I would recommend 10 being your biggest cap. In the past, we have seen 10-person teams work, ish. They've failed everywhere you think they failed. Communication largely, scheduling largely. The one thing they didn't have that I think you're more prepared to do if you were in a big team like that is they didn't understand how to break out into strike groups, into strike teams, how to separate tasks and form into smaller groups. I've actually seen you all do this on these previous 2 projects. So if you do find yourself in a large team, think about how you're going to break the work up into these small tasks, into these like bigger modular kind of things. Especially think about why you're in this class. What did you expect to get out of this class? What do you expect to get out of this final project? If you wanted to do some really big tech thing, there are some ideas out here that require some heavy tech lifting. If you're interested in design, there are some really, really challenging design issues, especially with that forecast-based funding. So yeah, I'm really leaving that up to you, but I'm going to make sure that all the teams have 8 people. Any other questions?
Just
Okay.
Just one statement is like, Especially with the Snap team, I do realize that as presented to you today, it really does seem like a networking game. That really does seem like a game that will involve a lot of networking. And of course, we've spent the entire semester so far telling you, oh, good Lord, don't do that. It could be a huge tech challenge, or it could be a huge design challenge. The huge design challenge is how do you accomplish everything that we think we need networking to accomplish without networking. Or it could be a tech challenge that's, screw it, we're going to do networking. And then becomes, what's the least brittle way to accomplish that? The problem with networking in that particular game is that to require networking means that you need to play this game in a room with networking. Which means if you take it to a room without Wi-Fi, for instance, that means it's got to be something that's going to work over a phone system, or it's going to require short messages or something ridiculous, right? And then if you don't have networking, it's like, what are you going to be doing? Are you going to like point a camera at the room and do image capture or something? It's like some crazy things. Are you going to do manual data entry? That's actually a possibility. Anything that you can come up with that makes that game that we played in class slightly easier might be, beneficial for Pablo, and he's guaranteed that he will use it as soon as you provide it. So that's an incentive right there. But it is possibly, despite how simple that game is, possibly one of the toughest design challenges that I can see on the board today.
Up until now, we've been really strict in allowing you to use specific tools, to use specific methods. We're going to start easing up, but if you break any of the rules, you need to tell us why. That's all we ask. If you are going to use multiplayer, tell us why. If you're not going to use one of these game engines that we've been practicing on for this semester, you really need to convince us. So use the office hours like Sarah suggested, use the mailing list, talk to us during class. I've already had quite a few students talk to me individually and talk to them individually about these kind of things. So the rules are there to be broken, but don't break all of them at once. Break one.
If you're going to get rid of the tasks list or something like that, what are you replacing it with? Yeah. Right? Tell us, and if you're going to be not doing daily scrums because it doesn't work for your team, what are you replacing that communication strategy with? Because it's clearly there for a particular reason. Hopefully you've seen the reason, even if you haven't necessarily managed to make it work on the previous team. So what are you going to do in its place? Sarah, did you want to?
I think you guys covered it all. About all I can do is restate the comment about breaking rules. And it's break rules with care. We didn't give them to you just to be arbitrary. We gave them to you in our experience of watching a lot of students make a lot of games and make a lot of mistakes. That these are the big pits that people dig themselves in and then climb down and wonder what the heck they're doing in. So if you're going to break a rule, have a plan for it. Come and talk to us about whether or not you think your plan will work. We are here to try and support and give you advice and help out.
And I think it's fair to say that we've seen every single rule that we've provided actually successfully broken in every single year. Not all the time.
Except for that bad year.
Year. The what?
Except for that bad year.
Except for the one bad year where every project was crap. But
Don't be that year.
No, you're not that year yet.
You're not that year.
Nope. And Polina was in the class last year, so if you're looking for student level, what was it like during this project, talk to Polina. She can help you out. She can give you some tips. And talk to each other. That's why we do all these presentations. Yes?
Level of polishness does this one require?
We're going to talk about that through the rest of the semester. What does polish mean? Polish, to our eyes, I'll talk about this on Monday, but basically what we're asking for is the games you've made these past 2 projects, that's about the scope you should think for project 4. So if you're thinking about that kind of scope, but then you have 4 times the time, what are you applying that time towards? Polish in making sure the user experience is easy to use. It doesn't crash. It doesn't break. A player can start playing it and figure out through the systems of the game how it works, what the keys are. You've got good credit screens. We're not necessarily asking for an art, sound, or music polish we're not asking for indie level art. We're asking for just a level below that, a unified level of polish. So everything in the game has the same amount of time, care, effort being put into it. So
it doesn't feel uneven and bumpy. It doesn't feel like here's this awesome soundtrack with this really, really terrible art, or here's this really bleepy 8-bit thing with gorgeous hand-painted scenery. It's like that's not cohesive. We want everything to look like it's on an even level of quality.
This might be a preview for future lectures, but play Ponycorns. Look up the term ponycorn. It's a game made by a 5-year-old and her father. That is actually a high level of polish that I've seen happen in this class. If it happens with your projects, it would be really great. Yes, Sissy's Magical Ponycorn Adventure.
Yeah, the key thing to note here is that all the assets were created by the 5-year-old, and I believe the story was also written by the 5-year-old.
And the sound.
And the sounds were done by her, and her father just did all the coding and put it all together.
Yep.
So,
What's up?
$3,199 of donations today.
yeah. If you can draw as well as a 5-year-old, you can make good assets for your game.
All right, so you got 9 minutes left for the rest of class. Capture all of the ideas that you wrote down and mail them to videogames@mit.edu. So just whoever took a capture of each of these things, just turn it into a text file, mail it. Yeah.
Somebody created a Google spreadsheet. Can we all just put our pictures in there?
That's fine.
Sure.
So we don't get a million.
Absolutely.
Also, there are a couple of students who aren't in class today, so they may need some. You might need to help to sort of explain to them what happened today and bring them up to speed, especially if you're like dorm mates or hall mates or something like that. Please help them along and help them get ready so that by Monday, get that conversation going online so that they can at least have a clue of which team to join on Monday.
All right. Rest of the time is yours.